everyone is talking about Johnny Depp's silver fox glow-up. But while the world is focused on his new hair, they're missing the real reason he had to reconstruct his face entirely. This wasn't just about looking good for the cameras. It was a medical emergency that almost ended his comeback before it even started. For decades, we have watched this legendary performer completely mutate his body for the sake of his art, disappearing into eccentric, larger-than-life characters. But behind the stylish layers, the tinted glasses, and the effortlessly cool demeanor, a silent, destructive storm was brewing right beneath the surface. This is the untold story of a brutal physical collapse, an actor who became completely uninsurable in the eyes of major Hollywood studios, and the high-stakes, multi-layered surgical rescue that literally saved his life while paving the path for his massive cinematic return in the highly anticipated thriller, Day Drinker. To truly understand the gravity of this transformation, we have to look back to May 2023 at the prestigious Cannes Film Festival. Johnny Depp stepped onto the red carpet for the premiere of his film, Jean du Barret. It was supposed to be his grand, triumphant return to the global spotlight after years of grueling, highly publicized legal battles. Instead, the entire focus of the world's media shifted to a single, shocking detail: his mouth. Ultra-high-resolution close-up photos of his smile went viral in a matter of minutes, sending shockwaves across social media platforms. The reactions were brutal. People were openly repulsed, with commentators claiming his teeth were actively rotting, blackened, and decayed to the bone. Memes flooded the internet, cruelly juxtaposing his pristine, razor-sharp 1990s heartthrob era with a heavily worn, deeply stained, and visibly broken smile. To the casual observer, it looked like the inevitable, tragic result of a chaotic, rock-and-roll lifestyle characterized by decades of heady chain smoking, constant coffee consumption, and a blatant disregard for personal health. But fast forward to his recent public appearances, and the contrast is absolutely mind-blowing. Depp has emerged with a stunningly rejuvenated look. He is flashing a flawless, beautifully symmetrical, bright yet highly natural smile, a tightly defined jawline, and a vibrant, healthy aesthetic for his new Lionsgate project, Day Drinker, directed by Mark Webb and co-starring Penelope Cruz and Madeline Klein. To the untrained eye, this is just another standard, superficial Hollywood glow-up. People assume he simply visited a Beverly Hills dentist, paid a fortune for a quick set of porcelain veneers, and walked out looking brand new. But that easy explanation is an absolute lie. The truth is far more dangerous, complex, and scientifically fascinating. What looked like a simple cosmetic upgrade was actually a desperate, last-minute race against time to halt a systemic decay that was actively destroying his facial bone structure and poisoning his body from the inside out. But here is the chilling secret that Johnny Depp's team and Hollywood executives desperately tried to keep hidden from the public. While millions of people on social media were making jokes about his rotting teeth at Cannes, Depp was quietly dealing with a terrifying, life-threatening medical emergency. A silent, deep-seated bacterial infection had taken root deep within his jawbone. This wasn't just a matter of cosmetic embarrassment or bad breath. If left untreated, this type of aggressive oral infection can easily breach the deep facial tissues and enter the bloodstream, leading to a condition known as endocarditis, a potentially fatal infection of the heart valves, or even spreading upward to cause a brain abscess. Furthermore, the financial stakes were astronomical. Lionsgate and the insurance companies backing his upcoming film, Day Drinker, were on the verge of pulling his contract. Because of the active systemic infection running through his body, Depp was deemed a massive health liability. He was, quite literally, uninsurable. The reality of Johnny Depp's dental decline is a horror story of physical erosion that was decades in the making. In a resurfaced interview from 1995, Depp actually joked about his oral hygiene, famously stating that he had all sorts of cavities and a rotten little stub of a tooth, adding that he liked his imperfect smile because he found pristine, perfect teeth to be artificial and boring. But what starts as a rugged, rebellious aesthetic in your 30s can transform into a catastrophic medical nightmare by the time you reach your 60s. There were three powerful, destructive forces that drove his mouth to the absolute brink of structural collapse. First, we must look at his extreme, obsessional dedication to method acting. When Depp took on the role of Captain Jack Sparrow in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, he didn't want to use cheap, temporary prosthetics that could fall out during action scenes. Instead, he made the radical decision to have real, permanent gold caps and platinum crowns chemically bonded directly to his actual teeth. While this gave Jack Sparrow an iconic, gritty realism, it created a structural disaster. These permanent metal caps trapped microscopic food particles, plaque, and highly destructive bacteria against his natural enamel for months, even years, on end. He repeated this intense physical modification for other roles, including the highly unnatural clip-on teeth he wore as Willy Wonka in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. This constant bonding, removing, and altering of his natural tooth structure subjected his enamel to severe, chronic microtrauma. Second, Depp suffered from an incredibly severe case of bruxism, which is the involuntary, intense clenching and grinding of the teeth, typically brought on by immense, chronic psychological stress. When a person grinds their teeth under pressure, they exert hundreds of pounds of force per square inch. Over decades, this relentless grinding literally pulverized his outer enamel, wearing his teeth down to the highly sensitive soft dentin layer underneath. Third, his well-documented habits of heavy smoking and constant coffee drinking created a highly acidic, dry environment in his mouth. Saliva is the body's natural defense mechanism against oral decay, neutralizing acids and washing away harmful bacteria. Without a healthy flow of saliva, his mouth became an unchecked breeding ground for aggressive pathogens, leading to severe enamel erosion, deep intrinsic staining, and structural fractures that left him with necrotic, dying teeth. To understand how surgeons and dentists managed to completely rebuild Johnny Depp's face, we have to explore the complex biomechanics of facial architecture. When you suffer from severe dental attrition, meaning your teeth have been ground down and shortened by several millimeters over decades, it doesn't just ruin your smile. It completely alters the shape of your head. This pathological condition is known in the medical world as a loss of the vertical dimension of occlusion, or VDO. Your teeth act as the essential structural pillars that support the entire lower third of your face. They dictate the distance between your nose and your chin. When these pillars crumble and shrink, your lower jaw physically rotates upward and forward, collapsing closer to your nose. This structural collapse causes the surrounding facial muscles to sag, creates deep, aging nasolabial folds, and gives the lower face a sunken, prematurely aged appearance. It also triggers a process called jawbone resorption, where the body, realizing that the teeth are no longer functional, begins to dissolve and reabsorb the underlying bone tissue. Depp could not simply get veneers glued onto his existing teeth. Trying to attach cosmetic porcelain to actively decaying, unstable stubs is like building a skyscraper on shifting sand. Instead, he had to undergo a massive, multi-stage full-mouth reconstruction that required months of surgical intervention. First, oral and maxillofacial surgeons had to perform deep scaling, root planing, and intensive endodontic root canal treatments to completely eradicate the deep-seated bacterial infections. Several teeth that were decayed beyond the point of saving had to be surgically extracted. To replace the lost structural foundation, the surgeons likely performed bone grafting, inserting bone tissue into his jaw to stimulate new bone growth and reinforce the structural bedrock. Once the bone had successfully fused, titanium dental implants were surgically anchored into his jaw. After months of healing, a team of master cosmetic dentists and prosthodontists crafted custom, high-durability porcelain crowns and veneers. But the genius of this procedure wasn't just making the teeth look clean and white. They carefully calculated his original, youthful VDO. By restoring the precise, natural height of his bite, they physically pushed his lower jaw back down and into its correct anatomical position. This structural realignment instantly stretched the overlying facial muscles, smoothed out the sagging skin around his mouth, and completely redefined his jawline. It was, in essence, a highly complex, non-surgical facelift achieved entirely through the principles of dental biomechanical engineering. This extensive medical reconstruction was not merely a matter of personal comfort or vanity. It was an absolute, non-negotiable career necessity. Hollywood is a highly volatile, multi-billion-dollar industry where physical appearance is directly tied to financial risk and marketability. As Depp prepared to step back into major studio filmmaking with the Lionsgate action thriller Day Drinker, the stakes could not have been higher. Directed by Mark Webb, known for his sharp, visually engaging storytelling in 500 Days of Summer and The Amazing Spider-Man, the film represents Depp's first major U.S. studio role in years. In Day Drinker, Depp plays a cruise ship bartender who crosses paths with a mysterious, enigmatic traveler, played by Penelope Cruz. A bartender is a character who must project effortless charm, sophistication, and a magnetic physical presence. He is the focal point of the bar, a man who relies on his looks, his smile, and his charisma to engage with passengers. If Depp had shown up on set with the decayed, uneven, and weathered teeth that shocked the world at Cannes, the illusion of the character would have been completely shattered. But the aesthetic requirement was only half the battle. The true hurdle was the cold, hard math of movie studio insurance. No major Hollywood production can move forward without a completion bond, which is a specialized insurance policy that guarantees the film will be finished on time and on budget. If a lead actor suffers from a chronic, active medical condition, such as a deep-seated jaw infection that could flare up at any moment and require emergency hospitalization, the insurance company will refuse to issue the bond. The financial consequences of a lead actor falling ill during a shoot are catastrophic, costing upwards of $250,000 a day in wasted crew wages, location fees, and equipment rentals. By undergoing this grueling, comprehensive facial and dental reconstruction, Depp didn't just reclaim his health, he restored his financial bankability, transforming himself from an uninsurable liability into a highly bankable, polished, silver fox that major studios could safely invest millions of dollars in. Johnny Depp is certainly not the first Hollywood icon who had to completely rebuild their oral structure to save their career and preserve their facial longevity. Throughout cinema history, many of the world's most recognizable stars have quietly undergone massive dental reconstructions that fundamentally altered their physical appearance. Consider the legendary Tom Cruise. In the early days of his career, Cruise possessed a highly misaligned, heavily discolored smile, including a prominent central incisor that sat completely off-center, directly in the middle of his face. His decision to undergo extensive orthodontic work, structural alignment, and cosmetic dental procedures didn't just give him his signature, world-famous megawatt smile. It structurally balanced his jaw joint, preventing chronic, debilitating jaw pain and allowing him to maintain his intense, highly physical stunt work well into his 60s. Another striking example is Demi Moore, who candidly revealed to the public that intense, chronic stress had actually caused her to lose her 2 front teeth due to bone-level decay and gum recession. She had to undergo immediate emergency dental restoration and implant surgery to reconstruct her smile, preserve her facial symmetry, and protect her professional longevity. Even Nicolas Cage famously had multiple healthy teeth surgically extracted without anesthesia to truly embody the pain of his disfigured character in the 1984 film Birdie, only to undergo massive, state-of-the-art reconstructive dental surgery later to rebuild his jaw, restore his bite, and secure his position as a leading Hollywood action star for the next 4 decades. In the high-stakes, visual medium of motion pictures, an actor's face is their ultimate currency. And when the physical foundation of that currency begins to deteriorate, the entire career can collapse in an instant. Ultimately, Johnny Depp's dramatic, jaw-dropping facial transformation is not a superficial tale of Hollywood vanity, or a desperate, tragic attempt to cling to his lost youth. It is a profound story of biological and professional survival. By facing a hidden, highly dangerous systemic medical emergency head-on, Depp was able to rebuild the literal, physical foundation of his face, reclaiming his systemic health and proving to the world that his creative flame is far from extinguished. As he steps back into the cinematic spotlight with Day Drinker, he isn't returning merely as a survivor of the tabloid press and highly publicized personal trials, but as a man who quite literally engineered his own physical and professional rebirth. But while Depp's physical transformation is a fascinating masterclass in modern medical engineering, there are other legendary stars whose dramatic sudden physical changes hid even darker, more complex secrets. To discover how the Hollywood studio system uses extreme physical transformations to cover up massive legal battles, personal crises, and hidden medical emergencies, click on the video appearing on your screen right now, where we break down the shocking, untold truth behind another major star's sudden disappearance and their highly controversial return to the screen.